Welcome neighbors. It's really a good turnout considering the amount of people at the other event. I know some of you already made a donation and have come to this. We much appreciate it. And I say neighbors because all politics is local. I'm a volunteer fireman. If anything happens to one of your properties, I'm going to go no matter what your politics are, and I think that's the nature of our community. It's good to have candidates willing to be here, but first of all, I want to thank Carrie Graybill and Sue Peterson for putting this together, the Democrats and the Republicans working together to bring this forum to you, and thanks to the museum for having this location available. Our structure tonight is we're going to start with the District 77 House candidates. What we've done is drawn out of a hat as to who would go first. We've done that with the House candidates, and Mark Sweeney will go first, and Richard Motta will be second. They'll have a 90-second introduction of themselves. Then they will answer questions. It's 90 seconds per question, and Carrie is our timekeeper. So be careful. Then we'll have the commission candidates, and I don't know if Bart's here yet, but we have Wayne Hale. No, Bart Bonney. He's not here yet. Okay, and then Chuck Hinkle. Chuck, you're there. So they'll go in the order of Bart theoretically first if he shows up, then Chuck, and then Wayne. And at the end, whoever went first at the beginning will go second at the end. So without further ado, I'd like to have Mark Sweeney introduce himself, and you're either welcome to the microphone or
I'll come up there.
Okay, Mark. Get out of the way.
My voice would probably carry without the microphone, but again, thank you, Jim, and the Democratic and Republican Central Committees. I know you've been both working real hard to get candidates out and let us get to know our communities, and so this is, I think, the third one of these. We had one in Drummond earlier, and then the Democratic Central Committee had one, a picnic where all candidates were invited. Anyway, I'm proud to say that I've lived in House District 77, which is Anaconda, Philipsburg, and Drummond, for longer than I thought. So just probably around 34 years. I worked at the Anaconda Trout Hatchery. I ran that over there for many years, and retired from Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. Prior to that, I was raised in Miles City, born in Butte is where my roots are. I was raised in Miles City and went to school at the University of Montana Western. Graduated in Natural Resource Management there. Went to work in Libby for 3 years, studying the effects of the drawdown on the reservoir up there. So I've kind of been involved in energy development and the effects of that a little bit. So I've had the great pleasure of living all around the state. I was elected to 2 terms of the Anaconda Deer Lodge County Commission over there. So I've done that. Mr. Hale, I appreciate you stepping up and doing that. I always said it was a good thing to have in my rear view mirror. It was a good experience. And when I was done, I believe that my constituents appreciated the efforts that I did. I was diligent and stayed up on all the literature over there. We had Superfund issues over there, and it's a city-county government, so we had city issues and county government issues. Yeah, it was a good experience, and that's where I got my feet wet in the political forum. This is where the rubber meets the road. So regardless of party affiliation, it's good to come together as a community and get to know candidates. Thank you. Okay.
Hi, I'm Dick Motta. Just as far as my background is concerned, I've been in the Philipsburg area for about 20 years. Prior to that, I was controller at the pulp mill in Missoula. I also owned the spaghetti station there. I own the commercial data, which is the Computer Service Bureau. And I've also was appointed as a JP here for the local court. I'm kind of running on the basis that I'm more or less pretty well fed up with the amount of government that we have. I think we have to go back to a limited form of government. And what we have now is a situation where the federal government is basically bankrupt. Somewhere along the line, they've got to come to the realization that they can't pay their debts. But what they're doing now is, rather than paying their debts, they're transferring these costs down to the local level. I should just say the state level. I think the state, in turn, has been passing it down to the local level, and we're seeing that in the form of grants. These grants have stipulations associated with them, and with the association, the local district is responsible for getting the money, and then they're also responsible for the next 20 pages of stipulations in order to get the grant. I think we have to have independence on the state level.
It's 90 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay. Did you take my time? Well, anyway, I tend to look at it from the standpoint of an accountant. I expect the people to be fiscally responsible. I expect the state government to be fiscally responsible. One of the initiatives that's out there now is a sure indication that the state is starting to absorb some of those costs for that. You know, you're looking at a situation where the federal government can't afford for the Affordable Care Act, and they're passing down the Medicare benefits to the state. The state, in turn, was going to be passing it down to the local level, and they want this to be a permanent fixture. As far as an appropriation,
You gotta wrap up now.
okay, you threw me off schedule.
I'm trying to be fair.
What was her name?
It's okay.
I'm gonna return the mic to
Okay.
Mr. Judge.
Thank you. Actually, to make it easy for you, we will just let you answer the first question.
Oh my God.
Yes. This question is, what difference do you think it will make if a Philipsburg area resident is our House representative? That's 90 seconds.
I'm not quite sure how to handle that. It's been, I've run as a Republican in the House district and for the Senate here in the last couple of elections. As far as having somebody from Philipsburg representing you in the House district, it's been somewhat of an illusion. The chance of somebody from Philipsburg being elected is almost slim to zip. For all practical purposes, Anaconda determines how the people are going to be elected, and your chance of getting elected to the House district is, again, slim to zip. Mr. Sweeney has moved over here, so maybe the chances for somebody from Philipsburg being elected to the House district is a lot higher. So,
Good, thank you. Mark?
Same question.
Same question, 90 seconds.
This is an opportunity. I've been very fortunate. Is that me? Okay. I've been very fortunate to be able to move over here 10 years ago. My in-laws over there, Vic and Carol Standa, I was fortunate enough to meet and marry Sue 8 years ago and came over to Philipsburg. And having been the county commissioner in Anaconda in 2 terms, you know, I'm a known entity over there. I know those people very well. I know what their issues are. I'll serve them well. But also it's a real benefit, I think, now to have me over here. Jim was appointed to fill that seat several years ago, but I think this is the first opportunity to actually elect somebody out of Philipsburg to serve as the House of Representatives. And I think, you know, I know I have the support of Anaconda. I want to reach out to Anaconda, or to Philipsburg and Drummond in ways that maybe other candidates haven't in the past. So it is a good opportunity for all of us.
Okay, stay where you are, and let me ask the second question.
Are you willing to work across the aisle?
I am willing to work across the aisle. There's lots of good things happening, but we're going to have some real budget issues, I think, in the state legislature. Mr. Motta referred to some of those mandates that are coming down that we have to address. And yeah, I will be looking for anybody. One of the first things I would like to do is introduce a bill that creates tax-free status for retired military in Montana. We're one of the few places that don't do that. And I think that would be an opportunity to encourage retired military people to move to Montana, open up new businesses, and so that's something I'm going to reach out to people across the aisle, and I think that'll have bipartisan support there. You know, growing up in Montana, living here, you have friends that are Republicans and Democrats and independents and libertarians, and you know, at the end of the day, I think we all want the same thing. We have different ways of getting there. So generally, I get along very well with people, and I look forward to working with anybody that's willing to put the nose to the grindstone and get the job done.
Okay.
Good. Thank you. Dick, the question for you, 90 seconds. Are you willing to work across the aisle?
As far as being willing to work across the aisle, I think it's probably more a matter of whether the other two parties be willing to work with me. So yes, I almost have to, by default, work across the aisle, or I'm not going to get anything done. So I want I want to accomplish some things that I think have to be done. When I look at the Constitution as being a common denominator for all of the candidates for the House and for the Senate, it seems to me that we're out there, our function should be to represent the people. It shouldn't be to represent the party. So yes, I will definitely work across the aisle. I would hope that the other two parties will work with me. When I look at what's going on, the amount of spending that's going on is just outrageous. There is no fiscal responsibility, and I hope I can restore that concept to the legislature. For all practical purposes, it's a spending stupid, and I think it's time to cut the spending, and it's time to be fiscally responsible, and time to adhere to the Constitution.
Okay.
Good. Here's another question for you now. I'm sorry, they're coming at you very quickly.
I know, you're bigger.
No. Do you support the 6 mil levy, LR 128, that supports higher education?
As far as the mill levy goes for education, I guess I have some real serious doubts about that. I think that we have a situation going on now where the schools are changing from academics to indoctrination, and that also applies to the university level. From that standpoint, I think that we have to have again a time to say to the schools and to the thing, it's time to get your finances and economics under control. You've allowed the spending to go to the point where if you want a college education, it's almost prohibitive. You probably have to borrow, I've heard figures anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000 per year. Not many people can do that, and I think it's going to result in lower school enrollment, and I think they've been provided with money over the years, and they haven't done anything to control their spending. So I want to see more spending control on the education level, and I guess for all practical purposes, it's time to send a message to the educators that we want you to get your game in control and try and quit indoctrinating the students. These students should be they should be the best educated students in history. They should be the best educated in the United States. and we're something like 18th in terms of education. So I think it's time to send a message to the education departments and to the universities that we want you to get your costs under control, we want you to become non-political, and we want you to revert back to academics.
Okay, thank you, sir. Your question for you, do you support 6 mil levy on our 128?
Yes, I do support that. The 6 mil has been the funding mechanism for universities in Montana for 70 years. I think it started in 1947. It's something that comes in front of the people for approval, I think, every 10 years. But yeah, I agree with Dick. It's time to get more fiscally responsible. We have, a university system that's rivals the best in the world with engineering universities of Montana Tech and Montana State and Northern. I know that the University of Montana is having some struggles there with their programs, but I'd like to see some of this money spent on job training and 2-year programs. I was on the Highland University or the Highland College Citizens Advisory Council, and those community type colleges that are training people in nursing and to be linemen and welders and carpenters, those are programs where you can come out and get a certificate and go right to work and not incur the debt that is pretty outrageous right now. So I completely support that and expect more from our universities.
Okay. Thank you. Go away. All right.
Here's an easy one. What can be done to bring down drug prices?
In 90 seconds.
Gee, maybe we can be like candidate for governor Brian Schweitzer and take busloads of people to Canada and Mexico just to prove that it can be done. That something's wrong with big pharmacy. I think in the United States where we're the cutting edge of technology, we're the ones that bear the price up front with grants at universities to discover these. It's I really don't know what we can do to bring those down. Probably get generic drugs and maybe loosen the patents earlier so that generic drugs can be produced and hit the market out there so that there's a little bit more competition.
Thank you.
Mr. Motta, what can be done to bring down drug prices?
Thank you. I didn't catch the full broadcast this evening, but it seems to me that President Trump is looking at, I'm not sure what the term that he used, but essentially he's saying that he's going to eliminate a lot of the price fixing that's rampant in the market. I think in my own particular case, Elena had a prescription for a spray. When she first got the spray, it was something like $13. That price went up to $39. And then when we had the Affordable Care Act, that price went up to $339. So I think there's a lot of price fixing that's going on here. Her example is somewhat understates the problem that's associated with every outfit. In terms of the monopoly that they've established for each one of these drugs, I think that has to be eliminated. We have to get more to a free market thing as far as that is concerned. As far as what you're going to do to eliminate that, I think it all kind of revolves around Obamacare. If we were going to go to hospitals and then we're going to go to the federal government for reimbursements on the drugs, the insurance companies or the pharmacies have no incentive whatsoever in order to reduce the prices. They're going to maintain the they're going to maintain the prices at a fixed level, and they're going to try and promote as much profit as they possibly can. So I think we have to have some control over prices, and it has to start with eliminating the monopoly of the pharmaceutical industry.
Now here's another question.
How would you stay in touch with your constituents during the legislative session when you're not here?
Well, in terms of the constituents and staying in contact with them during the legislative session, I think that what we have now is a situation where the internet is providing a wide range of communications. To a large degree, I think that this is where we should be going for both the legislature and the state and the local level. Your constituents can contact you through the House Communication Board, or whatever the name of it is. You can answer them via the internet or via email or even via phone. I think more and more you're going to see legislation being done on the internet, and the communication should be wide open to everybody out there. And I think the communications will be almost immediate, and the people will be aware of what your position is. So I think this is the way that government is evolving. I think more communication is available to everybody, and I think we should take advantage of that communication capability.
Thank you. You need the question again?
No. Yeah, this is going to be the legislative session over there, 90 days. I've looked at friends of mine that have served in there, and towards the end of that session, they are haggard and beat. And so sometimes I stop and wonder what I'm trying to get into here. But anyway, we're not that far away. We're about an hour and a half away. We're a phone call away. I handed out my business card to everybody. I have my phone number on that. The ads I take out in the newspapers, I have my phone numbers on that. So, I'm available. There's going to be things come up that I'm going to really have to have your input as constituents. I don't want to get over there and pretend that I have the answers to any to things that come in front of me. But I know that people here and in Anaconda and Philipsburg, whether you're mining or timber, what's going on in Anaconda over there, I know there's a lot of experts out there, and I'll seek their advice constantly. So I'm available. You have my phone number through the legislative hotline in Helena. So that's something I really want to get across, that I'm here and want to hear from you and what's important. And sometimes we're going to agree, and other times we're not. But we can always sit down and share information and know where we're all coming from.
Thank you.
Next question for you. Do you believe in Medicaid expansion in Montana?
This is kind of one of the things Dick was talking about, but I do support 185. I've kind of struggled with that on taxing the tobacco industry and the inhaler things, and more than anything, I think they should be taxed. We're paying a lot of money to provide in health for that kind of enjoyment that people get. So it's a tough one. So we'll get over there. I'm sure we'll have good debate and see where this 185 goes. And if it doesn't pass, we're going to have a lot of work to do. And if it does pass, how do we cover those additional costs that come in front of us later, and how do we keep it going? So,
thank you. Mr. Motta, do you believe in Medicaid expansion in Montana?
As far as the Medicaid expansion is concerned in Montana, I think we have some conflicting type of reports being provided by the agencies that are advocating this. From what I understand, they're looking at another $80 million, and they want that on a permanent basis. From all I can, based on my experience with the budget, this to me is probably an unconstitutional act, because you are supposed to come up with an appropriation every year. The legislature is supposed to vote on that, and then the money will be distributed to that program. The other thing that I have a problem with on that is the expansion of the Medicaid. This again is a product of the Affordable Care Act, and it's another issue where they're trying to transfer the cost of the program down from the federal level to the state level. Another issue that I have with it is the position of the immigrants, particularly the illegal immigrants. If they are coming in here, they're not being charged anything to come in here. They're coming in illegally. They sign up for all of these services, and then when they retire, or if they're eligible for Medicaid, or they're not eligible, but they claim that they're eligible for it, and we have a situation where the cost of that is going up. If you've got 12 to 20 million illegal immigrants, the cost of that has got to be prohibitive. If we want to get the cost down to the citizens that are eligible for Medicaid, then I think we have to look at defining the program and saying who is and who is not eligible for it. And then we have to define how much money is going to be spent by the federal level and the local level. Under no circumstance do I think that there should be a permanent mill levy.
Now, another question. Do you think public land should be transferred to the state?
I get a little bit iffy on that one as far as transferring to the state. But what I was concerned with in terms of this transferring of land to the state is my experience with what happened way back when we got into the planning for what is about can't think of the term, for the lands that are out there which are in the Forest Service. They set up a thing in 1974 to plan for the future of the what is that word?
Sustained yield, is that
Well, no, not sustained yield.
Wilderness study areas.
The wilderness study areas. That program went into effect in 1974. What happened with that is that there wasn't any timber available to the local mills. The mills were in the process of shutting down. I was out at the pulp mill at that time. We had to come up with an additional source of chips to run the mill. The mills, there were probably about 40 to 50 mills shut down. You can see right here in Granite County that you no longer have the number of timber mills that you had at that time. So those were being deleted, jobs were being lost, and the plan was only supposed to take 5 years, and here it is now another 40 years ahead, and they're still studying it. It's almost an indication of total incompetence and government manipulation of the funding.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
No, I don't think that federal land should be transferred to the state. I don't think the state's in any position at all to manage the vast amounts of BLM and forest lands and other types of lands that are out there. What we do want is more responsibility and more involvement at the local level on how those lands are managed. Just in firefighting costs alone, on the federal level, there's no way Montana could pick up that tab. And also, I am fearful that is the first step in privatizing public lands. I know there's a faction out there that would like to see that. You can see a lot of activity in the state of Utah where they're putting federal lands into state ownerships as those lands can't be managed. I think there's a lot of people that think that that's a way to bring down our deficit, is to sell those public lands, and we aren't going to be the ones that end up with those. You know, I'm a huge user of the national forests and state lands. You know, when I'm out hunting and I see a blue square on the map and I have legal access to that, you know, I know that land belongs to me, and I can go out there with my dog and walk on it without concern of somebody coming in and running me off. And the same's true with the national forest lands and the BLM too, for that matter. So we just want better management of those lands and more local input, I think.
Thank you. Oops, next question is, do you think we should pay more attention to the Canadian border than we do now?
That's the one to the north, isn't it?
That's the one, I think it's, you go up Sansom and then keep going.
Yeah, that's, pay more attention to the Canadian border than we do now.
You know, so just no or yes?
Yeah, I really don't have a strong opinion on that. I guess that, you know, all of our borders need to be secure, and we need to know who's coming across them, whether it's on the southern border or the northern border. I think we do a fairly good job at that. The northern border access to Montana is huge to the economies on that northern level. I know they have a lot of Canadians coming down into Montana to vacation and buy land here. So they're great neighbors to the north, and I think we need to continue to manage it and know who's coming across. But I think it's good for Montana to be a Canadian border state.
Mr. Motta, do you think we should pay more attention to the Canadian border than we do now?
Well, I think at all times, it's up to the president and the states and the people of this country in order to define and support and defend our national sovereignty. As far as the Canadian border is concerned, I think we've got a lot better relationship with the Canadians, and so I think we can work out a lot better protection of the borders. When you look at the southern border, we have a situation where we have illegal immigrants coming across the border, and we can't even build a wall down there. So it makes me wonder just how representative our representatives in Congress are when they're trying to support and defend our borders. As far as Canada is concerned, I think that a working relationship is very much practical. So I don't think that we have to put the amount of attention up there that we do to the southern border. I think illegal immigration is a major problem, and we have to resolve that in the very near future. And primarily that applies to the southern border, and that's where I think we should be applying our attention. As far as the wall is concerned, I don't see where that's going to be very practical. You've got drones up there now. I think that maybe if they put the drones in the air, fired some warning shots, I think that would reduce the illegal immigration in half within 30 days. So yes, I think we have to pay attention to the Canadian border, but I don't think that's our most significant problem.
Okay, this one kind of this fits into the same general area. How do you feel about sanctuary cities?
With sanctuary cities, again, I look at that as a violation of our national sovereignty. As far as these cities unilaterally putting up the rules and regulations where they're going to bring in illegals and allow them just access to all of the benefits that are available to them, I think is one of the main factors that we've had out there as far as supporting all of these illegals. Supporting the illegals, the cost of that far exceeds a wall that's out there. So if the Congress doesn't have any intention of securing our national border, I almost look at that as a form of treason. I think that they should be out there supporting that, and I think that we definitely should cut off the illegal immigrants, and I think that we, at the very least, we should cut off supporting all of these illegal immigrants on welfare programs, medical, Social Security, or whatever program they qualify for.
Thank you. Mark, what's your opinion on sanctuary cities?
Well, it's probably something I'm not going to have to deal with in the state legislature. It'd be good to have those questions asked to our Senate candidates and U.S. congressional candidates. But I think, no, if you know you're in this country illegally and you have you get in trouble with the law and it comes up that you are here illegally, I think you should get deported. And it's probably an issue that our law enforcement have to face quite a bit on the southern states especially, but no, I don't like that concept at all.
Let's see. Now, your next question. Will you work to support our president's agenda?
Don't know what that agenda is. I have really no desire to work and support the president's agenda. One,
You don't know what it is.
What it is.
Then what are you
I like.
not
I really like where the economy is right now. It's flying high, and I think we need to do that in everything we need to do in the state legislature to reduce regulations to reasonable levels. And ensure that economy is a driving force, that unemployment stays low, and it just increases tax revenues. So I think it is about the economy. So that portion I do like. I have trouble with the person. So. At the state level, again, I'm not sure. I hope we don't get into that partisan bickering back and forth like that. But I'm not sure what the president's agenda is. If it's a great U.S. economy and America first, I'm for that too. Yes.
Mr. Motta, will you work to support our president's agenda?
I think the president is heading in the right direction. I think that what's happening in Congress is just kind of an indication of the stalemate that's developing between the two parties. We have a situation where, here again, we have $21.3 trillion worth of national debt, and it's a question of how are you going to solve that problem? From my perspective, the Congress doesn't even have any kind of an approach or plan whatsoever to solve the problem. The economy is basically on a recovery basis. President Trump has managed to turn that around, and I give him all the credit in the world for that. But what's happening now is that the Federal Reserve has decided that since the economy is so strong, they're going to raise interest rates. Well, it's only a quarter of a point. It's only another quarter of a point. In the last week, we had a quarter of a point increase, and prior to that, the prior month, we had another 0.25% increase. If you look at the national debt, that's 0.5%. That applied to the national debt of $21.3 trillion is $100 billion. That's not chicken feed. That's something that really substantial cost. If you extend out the national debt, there's no way that they can possibly do it. The Federal Reserve has a target of 4%. 4% of $21 trillion is $800 billion. Now, how are you going to pay all of your expenses and then pay the interest on the debt? So I think we have to get out there. We have to be support Trump in the way he's trying to turn the economy around. But in my estimation, it gets down to the same thing as I said before. It's the spending stupid. what are they gonna do to cut the national debt? And as far as I can tell, they're not doing anything whatsoever. And now that the economy is improving, the Federal Reserve is doing everything they can to turn that around. So I think we've got to get support from the Democrats, we've got to get support from the Federal Reserve, and this upcoming election is going to be a very, pretty much of a turning point for the economy. Either we get people in there that are going to be fiscally responsible, or the economy is going to go into another depression.
Okay, now wait a minute. This is okay. This one you'll like. This is very local. Can we count on your support for a bill raising the minimum speed limit to 55 miles per hour on Highway 1 west of Anaconda? Who cares about the Federal Reserve when we're talking about speed limits? It'd be from Anaconda heading back to it's 35 and 45 now.
It's up to 70.
No, just on Highway 1. It's Highway 1.
This Highway 1, he already drives 55 miles.
West of Anaconda.
West of Anaconda. Well, I think the speed limits are there. At times I look at it and I say, you know, the 70 miles an hour make an awful lot of sense. When we go up on the road between Anaconda and Philipsburg, there are times when I think I'm driving too slow and people are backed up behind me, and I had another vehicle following me, and suddenly, not suddenly, I went up about 3, 4, 5 miles, and then I see the sirens flaring, and I'm wondering, what the hell is that all about? So I pulled over, and the officer said I had been wavering on the road. Well, the guy that was following me turned me in and said I was wavering, but he was the one that was the problem. As far as I'm concerned, he was right he had his lights right in my window, and he was a distraction. So I didn't get a ticket, but I don't go 70 miles an hour. Whether I go 55 or not, I don't think that really matters. It seems to me that there's a group of people, if they want to get ahead of you and there's room to do that, they're going to do it. Okay, so I don't see anything really wrong with the speed limits that they have available right now. I'm not even sure how to answer that.
Thank you. Now that we're going to go 45 minutes, so this will be your answer, and then the final question here that we've chosen, okay?
Okay. And the speed limit, so
Right past the...
I know exactly where you're talking about. As a county commissioner, I was involved in that stretch of highway quite often. And I know everybody from here is, it's the Anaconda, west of Anaconda slow stretch. So I'm kind of a slow poke anyway, and I go over there a lot, and I just enjoy the drive. I remember one time the carnage of the amount of sheep that were hit there by one vehicle one time, just west of Anaconda, and it's actually a little west of that. But I think there were 15 sheep that somebody just careened into. That being said, the other slow stretch is a little out of control. That highway's been improved, it's been widened. What we need to do is reduce the number of entries that come in off the highway, and once you reduce those down, I think you have less threat of people coming in and causing accidents by them accessing the highway. So yeah, it's something that I would really like to do. That's a good thing for a state legislator to look at and work with local people on local issues like that.
Good. So this is the final question, and then we'll have a summation. Dick, you'll have the final question, and then you'll have a chance to summate, and then you'll be the last. So this question is, do you approve Initiative 186, and why?
Another one that I've given a lot of thought to and come to conclusion that no, I don't support 186. I kind of support the premises of it. I mean, who doesn't want our water to be protected and clean? And there's been some issues with mines that have not done that. But I think that I would rather see these mines permitted by DEQ. And if there's problems that we don't have the right laws, let's bring them to the legislature. And so we can discuss these in a legislative format and either strengthen the laws where they're not adequate. But yeah, mining industry is important to Montana. And I think that 186 just tries to paint things with too broad of a brush. I'd rather see us look at each individual mine proposal and deal with those situations. You have different geologies that are associated with each one of the mines, and we need, I think we have the right laws in place and the right agency to monitor that through DEQ, and that we don't need 186. I think it complicates things a little too much there.
So Dick, your reply, do you approve initiative 186? And then you get to do your summation.
I got the wrong spot.
Oh.
No, I don't approve of I-186. I think what we're looking at here is a situation where we're talking about essentially eliminating the mining industry from the state of Montana. Mining industry provides an awful lot of jobs. They provide an awful lot of taxes. The I-186 isn't specifically defined enough where you can limit the amount of government that's being imposed on the miners. For all practical purposes, they can't afford to comply with I-186, and they're probably going to have to go out of business. I think this is another situation where the federal government is using the state government to impose rules or environmental rules and regulations that they think are necessary to be imposed on it. I don't think that the federal government should be involved in the state business, and I fully disapprove of I-186.
Okay, now, you have 90 seconds as your summation.
Can I get a note?
You get a note? No, you don't even, I'll write summation. There you go, summation. There you go.
This is my summation. The I'm intending to do, or I hope to do, with my campaign is to get the government, the federal government, down to a constitutional level where they're required to maintain their authorized powers. They're not authorized to do all of the things that they're doing now. We have a revenue sharing that was imposed in 1986. As a result of the revenue sharing, the state is assuming a lot of the costs and a lot of the duties of the federal government. Again, when you get into the grant part of that, or you get into the law part of that, it's, again, the rules and regulations that stipulate that there are different conditions that they have to apply. I think when it gets down to the state level, we're looking at a situation where, again, they have the authorization to do these things. They have state sovereignty, and they represent the sovereignty of the people. We have to go back to the state sovereignty, to the people's sovereignty, and we have to limit the federal government, and in effect, we have to limit every level of government. It's become such a pervasive impact on our daily lives that I think we have to do something to stop that expansion of the federal government, state government, and the local government. Not only do I think that government has to be limited, I think it's also getting down to the point where it's becoming almost financially and economically necessary to do that. The math isn't there on supporting the level of government that we have. We've got, again, that $21.3 trillion worth of debt. There doesn't seem to be any indication that the Congress is going to limit that. and therefore we're going to continue to get our costs passed down to the local level. This is it's going to again put us into a situation where we have the federal government controlling the state government and our national our individual sovereignty. As it says in the Montana Constitution and actually in some of the statutes that support it, the people of Montana are not supposed to be beholden to the agencies that serve them. We have this. We have this. The sovereignty. It's up to us to support that level of sovereignty against the federal government, the state government, and that's where I think I want to go.
Richard Motta, candidate for House 77. Thank you.
Thank you, and again, thank you to the Republican and Democratic Central Committees for putting this together and bringing us together in front of you to get to know you and you to get to know us and talk about some of the issues that are out there. Where this is an open seat, regardless who gets in there, it's going to be a steep learning curve, and so it'll be a challenge. And I know that I'm going to be reaching out to a lot of you during the session, and I hope that you feel, take a card home with you, call me up, if there's something that you feel strongly about or something that you think I should know. I'm available and I want to hear from you. I'm real proud to be running in this district. I think House District 77 is just a kind of a microcosm of the state. We have great agriculture, world famous bull shippers right down the road, tremendous agriculture here. Anaconda's starting to pick up with manufacturing over there. We have state institutions. On my card there, one of my first bullet points is I'm a retired state worker, and a lot of people say, well, why would you put that there? Well, those constituents over there need to know that I've experienced that. I have a state pension that, I'm concerned about, and that I want to know that there's somebody in the legislature over there watching out for those interests. I know also that the best way, or the best thing we can do to create revenue, and the budget's going to be a huge issue, probably without a doubt the largest issue. It's what brought the legislators back in special session. Without a doubt, the best way to deal with that is through increasing revenue. So that comes from private sector, growth in the private industry. I do like that course where we're on. You're seeing people invest in private industry and hire, and that is the best way to deal with our budget problems. Keep spending down, like Mr. Motta said, but also increase our revenue. So again, thank you for coming out. We have one more of these on the October 25th in Anaconda. I hope you make the trip over. I know it's a slow mileage over there to get in there, but it's worth the trip over. And like I said, I couldn't be prouder to represent House District 77. I'd appreciate your vote and support.
Candidate Mark Sweeney. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Dick. And thanks to everybody for coming. This is a really good turnout. We're running a little long, and we have, is Bart here, Bart Bonney here yet? If not, then the procedures we have, if you gentlemen would turn your chairs over to we have two candidates for county commissioner. I'm not saying leave the room, but we need to. Huh? Well, it's you negotiate with the incoming candidate. Thanks again. We have we drew lots, and we have Chuck Hinkle, a candidate for county commissioner, and Wayne Hale. And by lot, the first candidate to speak with a 90-second introduction would be Chuck Hinkle. And I think we were hoping we're going to try to hold you to the 90 seconds. But if I say time or something, because there's quite a few questions for you, so let's keep it rolling along. So, candidate Chuck Hinkle.
I think they've got it planned out.
Yeah, I'm Chuck.
They're
Moved here in 1984.
I really do.
Like, it was 84.
Yes.
When we played. And worked for Vic Stanley as my first ranger here. Worked with Forest Service.
Scott, they're
reason
just
I'm running
really
is-
arrogant.
You probably read some of the letters I wrote, and that's one of the reasons I'm running, is the smoke and the lack of forest management.
Can you hold it a little closer? Yeah, that's great.
I'm a lot more comfortable from the hood of a pickup truck.
Okay.
So anyway, that's not the only thing that I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about forest jobs, the lack of forest management. And then we got into this, I got into the Forest Resource Committee for the county, and come to find out that the growth policy plan for Granite County is outdated, and it needs to be updated and amended. And the thing came up that we can work with the Forest Service as an equal
There's no
government
coffee
agency
there. Can you
if
get
we
me
have
coffee?
things in the growth policy and the items. And so that's what we're working on now in the committee.
Good. That's nice. Thank you very much.
And I'll just stand here.
Okay.
I don't need a mic. So, thank you for organizing this, and welcome to you all for attending. I was actually walking around Drummond last weekend, meeting people, shaking hands and listening to them on what their issues were regarding the commission and the commissioners. And I came up to one door, and the woman came to the door, and she goes, "You're that guy." I said, "I'm that guy." She said, "Yeah, the guy. I said, "You mean the write-in candidate for county commissioner?" She said, "Yeah, that guy." I said, "You mean Wayne Hale?" She goes, "Yeah, you're Wayne Hale." And so, I'm that guy. I'm Wayne Hale, running for county commissioner. And really, I come to you via Puyallup, Washington. I worked there in the farming industry for up until university. I graduated with a degree in chemistry, an MBA, and then I moved right into the mining industry. And in the mining industry, I worked as a supervisor all the way up through as CEO. And I worked in 5 different states and 4 different countries internationally. So I come to this job with a full tool belt: people management, budget management, project planning, and actually working with you all to get things done, because that's what I do. I work with people to build coalitions to get things done. On the softer side, my wife Susan, I've married to her for 42 years. She owns a cotton patch up in Drummond. She and my 3 daughters and now 6 grandsons have taught me humility and love and respect and how to do things with people. And so combining those together, I am here with you today to listen to your questions, answer them appropriately, and I think at the end of the day, you'll know that I'm the best candidate for this position. Thank you.
Okay. Now, if you're comfortable speaking from there, your first question, you would be answering this, Chuck. Our public health nurse, Annie Young, has had her budget decreased. This has led to a reduction in services. Do you agree with this reduction? 90 seconds.
No, and I'm totally for the hospital and the nursing home especially. And like the article in the paper said, I think, the demographics have changed in this county. And, from younger people, and we were here, and a lot of families, to older people like us. And, we need that hospital, we need that nursing home. And I would like to put more emphasis on the nursing home, but have a good basic hospital, but not a destination hospital. Okay, because we just can't handle that, and we got destination hospitals too. So, no.
Okay, good. And Wayne, you want to
Yeah,
answer from there?
yeah, thanks for that. I actually met with Annie this last week, and we talked about this issue. She talked about the hours that were cut from her, and I totally disagree with how that was been done. And so what I would be advocating for was, let's sit down and understand what we need from her. by developing a plan and all the actions that need to be developed in that plan, and then develop the hours that are needed to action that plan. And so with your input, we would help define that plan, develop the program, understand the resources. In addition to her, I believe there will be hired a administrative assistant to help her. And so in this regard, we meet the needs of the community. We meet the needs of you through your help in developing the program with her so she can service the needs of the community and what's required of her.
Okay, now this is yours to answer, sorry. The commissioners have reduced their hours and eliminated their work sessions. Are they devoting enough time to their job?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Coming out of the mining industry, I'm a 24/7 guy. And certainly, you all vote for us, and you all expect us to work for you. And so I would be an advocate of developing the meetings around your needs, rather than the needs and the convenience of the commissioners. Tell us what you want, when you want to meet. Is it in the morning? Is it in the evening? Is it on the weekends? Is it multi-meetings during the week? This is important. And also, it's important that we have a 20th century move, not 21st, but 20th century move on how we communicate with you. I want real-time streaming of these meetings so you can access it via the internet. You can ask questions via the internet real time. And so if you can't attend, you can still attend through electronic meetings. So yes, meetings at your convenience, 24/7.
Chuck, you got the question there.
If they reduce their hours?
Yeah, I think they're devoting enough time for the job. It is a part-time job. So, you know, I mean, some people might have more time than other people to put in, you know, and work longer. But, you know, no, I'd say, they're doing a good job and
Okay. So the next question that you get to answer is, what changes would you bring to the county commission office?
I bring knowledge, basically, and this time it is critical, the knowledge of the forest. You guys seen it, you know, the management we're getting now, and, you know, forestry isn't burning up 100,000 acres and letting it all fall down. And maybe putting up a little hazard-free reduction sale. I will bring that knowledge, and that will get me into this growth plan and the coordination with the Forest Service. Okay, I'm the best candidate to coordinate with Forest Service. I know forestry. I've worked in it for 38 years. The county is 70% forestry. I think it's like 65% of that is government. Okay, so it's critical. I mean, and like Wayne wouldn't know the jobs we used to have here in the timber industry. You know, we had the mill in Hale. You know, we had little postal pole mills all over the place. You know, guys, young guys could come in with a chainsaw and a pickup and buy a small sale and go out and cut postal poles and work their way up in the timber industry. We have some of the best loggers in the world, and I've been to Europe and I've seen them, and they're right here, and we're not utilizing them, and that's one of the main things I'll bring.
Okay. You need your question repeated?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay.
Some of the key changes that we make at the commission are pretty simple. We'll get back to basic ethics. So let's all behave appropriately on how I would behave at home as you would behave at home. I would expect the commissioners to do the same. And so by doing that, then we engender trust in them again on representing you in the work they need to do in the community. Secondly, we need to have a better communication plan, such that it's a bilateral communication, not only communicating to you better in some of the points I made earlier, but also you have the ability to communicate to them more effectively. because communication is a foundational block on anything that we do, whether it's in private or public forum. And finally, it's fiscal responsibility. Through your tax dollars, you're allocating money for them to use appropriately for the services they provide for you in the community. And so I want to make sure that every dollar that's coming into that budget is being used as if it were their own appropriately, and actually have transparency in that. So you can review how the money is being spent and make a judgment if it's being done properly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for staying in tight answers, gentlemen. Now, this next question is for you, Wayne. Philipsburg and Drummond seem to pay double for law enforcement. Can you address that question?
They seem to pay double. I don't know the budget in detail, as perhaps some of you in the meeting here. However, if that is the case in that payment of double, I'd like to review that element of why that is the case.
I think they're referring to the fact that both the towns pay additional funds for police protection where people in the county themselves do not do that.
Oh.
So that's the main issue, I think.
Oh, okay, so it's a taxation in the individual areas. Okay, well, again, I don't know the specifics of those taxation issues in regards to the various communities. However, I can say that I've not known a lot of things in my life, whether it's in the mining industry and whatnot, but I do have the ability to ask the right questions. I'm a quick study on things that perhaps I can get into pretty deeply. And so issues like this, and no doubt there are other issues that I'm unfamiliar with, I coalesce the right people. You make the team bigger by asking the questions of the people who know these things so we can actually understand the detail and then make the right decisions based on fact rather than rumor and innuendo.
Thank you. Chuck?
Well, I don't think they should be taxed extra. I really don't know.
Okay. Now here's one. This one's a little easier. What's your opinion of road maintenance in Granite County?
East Fork Road? All in all, they're doing a pretty good job. They lack on some job, like the East Fork Road once in a while. They, you know, it could be bladed quicker and kept in better shape. But all in all, and then a lot of roads are good. As far as snow plowing, in the last few years, they've done a great job on the East Fork. I don't know about other places, but I can't complain about that. And I don't know about the north end of the county, but I imagine they're doing a pretty good job down there too.
Okay. Yeah, it's your turn again. Oh, you didn't get a chance. Go ahead. Sorry. My apologies.
The question is do we like the quality of road maintenance in the county? Do I have a hand showing? Oh, okay. Yeah. Like Chuck, I think they do an adequate job, but not a good job. I mean, we allocate money to the road maintenance, but there is no planning. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. So my advocacy is this. Let's understand what roads are in the county. What are they? Are they county? Are they state? Are they unmaintainable? Are they maintainable? And then let's go out and audit those roads to understand the quality those roads are in. And with that, then we can develop a 2 to 5 year plan on how we will maintain these roads. And when you come to the central building there in Philipsburg and want to know where your road is, we can look at it and say, well, here's your road. It's in this condition, and we expect to get it repaired at this time frame. And so with that, then we can budget more appropriately over a multi-year time frame to get these roads in the condition they need to be in. And when you want to know, you'll see it because it'll be transparent because the budget will be there.
Can I add something? Oh, it's not that simple. Roads deteriorate at different rates. I mean, you could have like the Upper Willow Road. I mean, it stays in pretty good shape, and the East Fork Road will go bad quick. okay, and it depends on how fast you're driving, and the Middle Fork Road, I mean, it can get really bad. Okay, so putting it up there, it's not gonna work.
Wade, do you have a?
Yeah, I do have a encounter. You know, I have to say that having worked in the mining and metals industry all my life, I know road maintenance. I know road haul maintenance. I know how to fix roads, maintain roads. I know how to evaluate roads and make an evaluation of roads. So to suggest that, oh, one road needs more than others, that's how we get into trouble, because the squeaky wheel says, hey, can somebody go fix my road? Well, it's outside the plan. Let's plan for things. And yes, there are exceptions to the plan, I understand that. But when we make exceptions, that's when we get into problems.
I just want to say that I did road maintenance for since 1984 here, and other places too, so.
Yeah.
Okay, point, counterpoint,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you.
So let's see, it's your turn, Wayne, and what is your opinion about the continuous postponement, third time, regarding the Adler trial, and do you think he should be suspended from office until that is over?
You know, I certainly can't opine on that, because that's a legal issue. And unfortunately, I'll say this, unfortunately it has been delayed. I think all of us would like to see this reviewed and resolved. But for one reason or another, it has been continually pushed along. And perhaps there's an interest that we'll all forget. But we won't forget. This was a demonstration of poor values and ethics. It doesn't matter about the values, the decision was made, and the deed was done. And as far as the suspension or stepping down, you know, that was his decision and the decisions of the commissioners. I cannot speak for Scott nor the others, but my personal opinion is he should have stepped down, and I can't understand how the other commissioners would vote to keep him on the commission.
Good.
No, I don't think he should have stepped down. That was his decision, and he hasn't been proven guilty yet in the court of law.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to comment on it. I wasn't there. But I will say that if I was sitting in a meeting for and they talked about it for more than probably a minute, I probably would have heard it. And I probably would have said something about it. Well, I would have said something.
Okay. Now, this is another one, this is for you. To the commissioners, if elected, will you demand a Granite County-wide forensic audit? Forensic audit, it means like they call the cops and people come in to audit. It's a big audit. Okay. Forensics, like CSI, Granite County.
No.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea, because we don't know what we don't know, folks. I mean, this would be a forensic audit of the finances and the actions that the commissioners take on a day-by-day basis and the decisions they make. This is similar to any financial audit in a financial institution or a business. And so we need that audit to really understand where the money's going, because you don't and I don't. And so an independent audit will help us now understand where the money is coming in from, how it's being allocated, and where it's going.
Okay,
Why didn't it say a financial audit? Why didn't it say a financial audit?
Why
I
didn't
just
you
read your
understand
questions,
it?
I don't write them. A
Jesus.
financial audit.
Of course we should have a financial
Okay.
audit.
Good, I apologize for not being clear. So, let's see, I think we have a new question. Whose turn?
Mine.
Okay. Chuck, would I borrow that? Thank you. What's your opinion on the petition for the Lower Rock Creek area to leave the hospital district? If you don't have a stance, please explain your decision-making process and how you would ultimately come to a decision.
Yeah, I think that's a great issue, but I think it's a symptom of a bigger problem. It's a symptom of a bigger problem. And the problem is this, it's exclusivity versus inclusiveness. And so we have, in the county, we have the north, the upper valley, the lower valley, we have the east and the west. And so I think rather than being excluded from things. We have to be inclusive of how we do work and how we include everyone in the county on specific decisions and services provided. It's not appropriate for a group of people to secede from a service. We need to be inclusive all together as a community in the county to make decisions on these very important issues. Because if one person or a group can be exclusive, where does that stop? So it's a symptom of the bigger problem of not being inclusive and together on a lot of things. And that's where I want to bring the county together.
Yeah, as far as Lower Rock Creek, I thought about this a lot, and yes, I would vote for they can leave. It just doesn't make sense that they're in the hospital district. But as far as Drummond, at this time, no. Drummond does use the hospital more, but you know, Lower Rock Creek guys don't. And I sure wouldn't drive 90 minutes up here when I can go 30 minutes St. Pat's. So, yeah, I'd let them go. As far as Drummond, no. And it is part of a bigger problem, like you said. I would, you know, everybody in the county uses, I've known people throughout the county that use the nursing home. And like I say, more emphasis should be on the nursing home, have a good basic hospital.
Okay, here's another one to you. Do you think federal public land should be transferred to the state?
Yes and no. You know, I know a lot of retired Forest Service people, and I've talked to them, and they said, yeah, transfer it. We're really tired of no management. Basically, you can't say no management, very little management. So, you know, I thought about this, and you know, just because if it was transferred, I really don't want it transferred. I love the public lands. We have to have the public lands. That's what makes Montana great. However, just because you transfer to the state doesn't mean it's going to be sold off. And you know, the people say, well, the state doesn't have the money to manage those lands. Well, neither does the federal government. I mean, they're borrowing the money. You know, and they're borrowing all that money for these fires. You know, and that comes off the deficit. You know, or adds to the deficit, to the federal deficit, and we get nothing for it. So my answer is no, but you know, if we don't get any more management from the federal government, then yes, but under one condition. You could have a bill that says, okay, if we transfer these lands, you will not sell these lands, okay? And you'd put it under a board, an elected board. So you'd have your mission statement for the transfer, and then the board would be elected by the people, and they'd make sure that they carry that out. In addition, you could put in there that, you know, the federal government sells land, you know. There comes to be reasons that you have to sell land. So what I would do, okay, if for some reason they had to sell the land, it would have to go through the board, and then all of the board would have to agree to it, and there'd be like 20 people on the board. Okay. And then they would have to add 10% more to the state land if they sold that land. Okay?
Thank you. Now, Wayne, do you think federal public land should be transferred to the state?
Actually, I don't think the federal land should be transferred to the state. There's a couple of big issues here. one is the state doesn't have the financial capability to manage that land once it's transferred. It would cost more than $500 million for the state to manage those lands if they were transferred. I think even more importantly is that if those lands were transferred, then those lands are now available for private purchase. All of us enjoy Montana. All of us enjoy the access to the land out there. However, we wouldn't enjoy the access if it were limited and private entities came in and purchased that land. And so I think those are the key issues in regards to this transfer. Now, I think there can be some better management at the federal level and how those lands are managed at the federal level, although we need to build coalitions with other states to help because of the lack of representation at the federal level. So working with Colorado, Idaho, and ourselves, we could build those coalitions and help change the federal requirements in managing those lands.
Thank you, Wade. Now here's another question. Do you support the approval of the Salish-Kootenai Water Compact in Congress? And if not, would you actively fight against it? I'm going to repeat it.
Yeah, I understand it.
Okay.
And so I guess this is another issue that I am not totally up to speed with. I do understand the compact for what it is. However, in this case, I would, again, call on those people, make the team bigger, so I would gain advice from people who are more knowledgeable, so I could help make make those decisions and also give my opinion. And so that's the most important thing I said before. I'm not the sharpest pencil in the box, and nor am I the technical expert on everything. But I do know how to build teams, and I know how to also call on those experts that can give us advice and guide us in the right direction. So in these critical elements and very specific areas that are fundamental to our rights and our water and natural resources, this is what I would be doing so I could then gain the information and provide an opinion.
No, I do not support the approval of the Salish-Kootenai Water Compact at all. Okay, it was passed by the state legislature, probably illegally.
I'm sorry, it's a bad connection. Sorry. Oh, yes.
Anyway, it was probably passed illegally because it provides state immunity from being sued. And if you provide the state immunity from being sued, it has to pass the legislature by 2/3. It did not pass the legislature by 2/3. It barely passed the legislature. And it was all politics. The 1855 treaty with the Indians gave the Native Americans equal access to the river for hunting, fishing, and berry picking with the settlers. Okay, so that just throws out the 1855 treaty. Over in Washington, I don't know if you know the Skagit River.
Yes.
Okay. Have you heard of the memorandum of understanding with the tribes on the Skagit River?
No.
Okay. Well, in the 90s, they did an MOU with the tribe, and basically it does the same thing as this water compact. Okay, fine and good. You know, the tribe, signed it, state signed it. So then about, I don't know, 10 years ago, they decided, the tribe did, that they were going to eliminate the wells, new wells. Now that wasn't in the original agreement. Okay, it's not in the water compact either. But what's to say if they get total water rights of the whole Clark Fork Basin, that they aren't going to come back and say, okay, this groundwater is inflow to the river, so therefore we have to control it. They would have total water rights. And so everybody should be concerned about this. And what would they say about Fred Burr? They'd have the water right to Fred Burr. they'd have the water right to Georgetown. They'd have the water right to East Fork and Lower Willow Reservoir. So, no, I'll fight it.
Thank you, okay. Let's see, it's your turn for,
His turn.
okay. Sorry. School Hill, which is right here, is the largest property in town, and it's county-owned. Is it appropriate the county shop be on that valuable property and off the tax rolls?
Yes. Been there forever.
Well, again, here's another example where again, how do you best utilize your land, and is it appropriate to put a maintenance shop on a very important and valuable piece of land? And so I think, again, let's do the economics on it. I mean, let's understand what the value that it can generate, what it would cost to move that shop to another lower cost land parcel, and with that economics and transparency, we can make an informed decision rather than a gut check decision.
Let me follow up on that. Another question here is, what plans have you have for fostering economics in the county and in towns?
Well, that's a really great question, because that's one of the fundamental issues that I see as important across the county. I mean, we talk about healthcare, we talk about fiscal responsibility, we talk about roads and maintenance, but one thing that we don't necessarily talk about as a county is business development. Not only of those businesses that are existing here in the county, but also those that want to come in. And so I'm very much supportive of a business development effort. And with that, we need an effort to really develop affordable housing and also childcare. Because we cannot have business development without the infrastructure necessary to allow people to move into the area and live appropriately. And so it's kind of like the chicken the egg discussion. But I'm an advocate for counties and also the individual cities to develop the necessary workflow and process so that we can understand and have it on the agenda all the time as far as business development and how we're going to grow. It has to be a multi-year program. And it cannot just be stop and start. It has to start and be consistent.
Thank you, Wade. So the question for you, Chuck, what are your plans for fostering economics in the county and towns?
Start off, we're going to revise this growth policy. It's totally outdated. It only goes to 2015. And then manage our resources. I mean, we are rich in resources, and they're going to waste. And it's horrible. You know, we should have at least a local mill here. You know, a dimension mill that you know, rough cut dimension timber, you know, and more post and poles. I mean, you know, I'm pretty sure I saw our post and poles in Stonehenge at a parking lot. I mean, it's from the Northern Rockies. I know it was, I can tell it. There's a world marker for it. And the Forest Service burns it up and lets it fall down. You know, it's ridiculous. And so, yeah, I mean, we can have a lot of jobs, and we can have they're good paying jobs too. And that's what I do, and I work with this mining company and, you know, develop that, and if it's possible, and, you know, that's about it.
Thank you. Wade, you get to do your summation.
I do.
Your 90-second summation.
All right.
And then you get the final word, sir.
All right. Again, thanks very much for organizing this great forum, and thank you for attending, because it's good to see that people like to come out and be informed about the candidates that they have to vote for. And I've been very happy and pleased to talk to you all today. And I hope from that discussion you have heard some of the passion that I have. and some of the energy that I would bring, and some of the new perspectives that I would bring to the commission. And one thing I think you have to remember is that doing the same thing as you've always done with a wish, hope, and dream that something's going to be different is kind of insanity. And I'm not going to bring insanity to the commission. I'm going to bring focus, change, and energy. So join me. Join me by voting for me as a write-in candidate in November. Mark that box fully, write in Hale, and you will be part of a team to create a different direction and a new journey for Granite County. Thank you.
Candidate Wayne Hale and Dr.
Focus and change, but what direction? I still don't know. You know, like I say, I'm looking that we can have the jobs, the forest jobs, the, you know, we can't go back to yesterday, but we can sure go back towards there a little bit and have, you know, there's a certain person or people that are good that work in a mill. And what do they have here? You know, they got the tourism and whatever, but, you know, and that's good, but we can have both. So, you know, I still don't know what his change is, you know? So I would, like I say, forest management, stop, work on this and stop the burning of our forest and put the loggers back to work.
Candidate Chuck Hinkle. Thank you to both of you, and that concludes our program, although we're going to be able to, obviously the candidates would be happy to chat with you. I'm sorry that our incumbent commissioner is not here tonight, but you did hear from the two other candidates. And gentlemen, thanks so much, and also for our House candidates, if they're still here.
Jim, is there another one in Drummond on the 22nd or the 29th?
I don't think so. There's a House debate in Anaconda. It'll be in Anaconda.
Isn't there something in Drummond in a couple of weeks?
I think they're meeting with the Kiwanis.
Yeah, I think it's the last meeting.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, again, we want to thank the hospitality of the museum, which actually, we're not in the museum, we're in the cultural center. And want to thank Republican and Democratic parties for putting this together. And you've been a very good audience, and I hope you have a chance to talk to the candidates individually. And thanks so much for being part of this. And don't forget, the absentee ballots go in the mail tomorrow, so you'll be able to vote on Saturday if you're an absentee, or vote in November. Thanks again for coming, everybody.